I'm going to explain the Pacifist run, and we're going to take it, we're going to make it a clip. As long as my roommate stopped screaming at me from behind me. Okay. Welcome everybody to the Pacifist run. The Pacifist run is a run within which you cannot directly deal damage to any creature, but creatures can cause damage to themselves. The primary way that we're going to do that, on the Paladin at least, is from 3 primary sources. 1, attacker takes damage. Attacker takes damage is an affix which is available, even at level 1 from shops. So if you go take a look and you shop around a little bit, you will find a piece of gear that says it right here. Actually, we're going to buy that one as well. So, something like this belt, this shield, or some of the other pieces of gear that we have, you'll see that it has the affix of thorns. Starting at level 1, you actually can only find of thorns on 3 pieces of gear, either a chest armor, a shield, or a belt. So the maximum amount of attacker takes damage that you can get on gear adds up to 3, except for one caveat, and that's like the holy grail of getting a Pacifist run off the ground. You can also find chipped skulls. Chipped skulls read that if they are socketed into a shield, it will return 4 damage. So, if you can get a 2-socket shield early on, and 3 pieces of gear, you can be returning 11 damage. Now, why is this so important, and why is it that we have to go through all this time and trouble? Well, again, the Pacifist can't deal direct damage. That means you can't use fire shrines or poison shrines or exploding shrines. You can't set traps. You can't use firewall. You can't attack them directly. You can't use spells which attack them. They have to hit you to deal damage. So that's the basics. When you're first starting off a run, you're searching around, you're going out, you're popping chests, you're getting money so that you can either find a chipped skull, and all you really need is one, or any other item on the ground which can sell for good money. So if I was going out here and I were to click something garbage, there's no garbage on the ground, pop a chest, get the money, etc., etc. So starting off at first, you are looking for gear that says attacker takes damage or of thorns. Again, there's a maximum of 3. In a Pacifist run, it is also a Player's X category. What does that mean? That means that at any time I can use the Player's command to change how many players the game thinks are currently there with me. This will increase experience gain, health, and damage dealt by the creature. It's all linear, so it's a 50% increase to experience and life, and it's about a 6.25, something like that, increase. Thank you very much for the follow, Mad Attack. It's a 6.25% increase in damage, I believe. You'll have to quote me on that. It comes out to be about 48% increased damage. Players 8 means that the monster is going to have 450% of their base life, and they are going to give 450% of their base experience, and they're going to deal roughly 1.5% or 1.5 times their regular damage. Awesome, cool, cool. So that's how we start off. We get attacker takes damage, we run around, you're going to level up off of something like this. So you're going to get your first couple of levels off of Bishibosh here. Bishibosh is like the first super unique that you can run into other than Cold Crow down in the cave. If you stand next to him, he will actually attack you rather than cast his fireballs. I'll try to highlight that here real quick. So as you can see, he actually swings his little dagger at us. Awesome. So if I had all this gear on and I didn't have thorns, he would eventually slowly kill himself. But you'll notice that everything is kind of missing me, right? That kind of sucks. You know, every once in a while something's hitting, but there's so many people attacking. That's because I have a defense rating, and I'm also wearing a shield, which means that I will block. If you are running, you cannot be missed. A creature will always hit you if you are running. So that's why you're going to run around, basically strafing from left to right in front of these guys, and then eventually they'll actually kill themselves. That little animation right there, that looks like a sunburst coming out of them, that is the attacker takes damage animation. So that's how you know that it's working. As a quick note, as you are leveling, if you are on expansion, so you're not a classic character, whenever you level up, the game will stop recognizing that you have attacker takes damage on your gear. So if you level up and you're still trying to fight stuff, you have to pick up any one piece of gear. It can be your scepter, it can be your shield, it can be your hat. You have to pick up a piece of gear and re-equip it, the game will then reread all of the gear that you are wearing, and it will continue to apply the attacker takes damage. Cool, great. But Mac, that doesn't sound like a lot of damage. How do we actually get up there? How do we actually get up to the amount of damage that we want to do? Also, logical links, no. Just as a quick thing. At players 1, the monster has 100% of their life. At players 2, they have 150% of their life, right? So 7 player increases times 50 is 350. Added to the original 100 is 450, just so that you're aware. It will stop reading it. You'll have to pick up the gear and put it down. But Mac, that doesn't sound like a lot of damage. What do I do? Yeah, dude, the cats are insane today. I'm not exactly sure. They're having a good time. Well, eventually, at level 6, you are going to get the Thorns aura. The Thorns aura is fantastic. It returns at base level 200 or 250% damage back to the attacker. So now when they're dealing 5 damage to you, they're taking 12.5 damage. So Thorns is our primary form of damage being dealt. The only other issue with the run is that there are 2 creatures which do not take Thorns damage because they do not melee attack. They are Lord Desace, who is an Oblivion Knight, who is the middle seal in the Chaos Sanctuary, and Madoc, who is one of the Ancients. Yes, I'll talk about the egg too. Madoc, who is one of the Ancients. The issue with Lord Desace, there's 2 problems. One, he is a ranged attacker, but his attacks don't count as ranged attacks, they count as spells. So he will never trigger Thorns damage, and also won't trigger stuff like this item. So something like this, a Ring of Charge Bolt, says 12% chance to cast a level 4 Charge Bolt when struck. What does when struck mean? Struck means when dealt physical damage from a weapon. The gear that we're going to use to handle that is of Nova Shield, which maybe Elzix will show us one right now. He didn't, and this is why we gave up on this run. Of Nova Shield will trigger when something hits you with a melee, or this one works too, a melee or ranged attack. Lord Desace doesn't do either of them, so we have to use something called the Storm Chaser package, or like the Finger Mage package. They are the little flying ghosts in the Chaos Sanctuary. They have really high lightning resistance. They will hit you, and you basically get them close enough to Lord Desace to hit you. It will trigger things like Charge Bolt and Frost Nova and regular Nova, and those Nova waves will hit him. And that's how you're going to kill him. So that's why we have to shop for a full set of Nova gear. The second minion that causes a problem for the Pacifist run is Madoc. Madoc is a barbarian that uses double throw. He also casts Shout. He casts Shout and he does double throw. Each axe that hits you can trigger any chance to cast when struck gear. Really awesome. Him, you don't need other people to be hitting you to kill him. His axes will do it for you, but he won't take Thorns damage. So you need to have chance to cast to eventually kill him as well. So those are the 3 primary types of gear that we're looking for. We're looking for Chip Skulls because they have the biggest return on investment. They are a single socket that gives you 4 damage. We then transition into Thorns for killing just about everything in the game, including bosses. And then for Lord Desace and Madoc, we use chance to cast Nova. Awesome. So we got that out of the way. We don't need to ask questions about the gear anymore. We don't need to know like where you get the gear, except for the chance to cast Nova. So chance to cast Nova, which is of Nova Shield suffix, is an item level 18 required suffix. In addition to that, it has a minimum level requirement of 13. So if a gear has of Nova on it, you can't wear it until level 13. Luckily, the way that the game is coded is almost perfect for this. In Act 2, gear can have of Nova Shield on it. Act 2 has a maximum item level of level 20 when shopped. What does that mean? When you open up a merchant, all of the gear in here, you can't see the item level, but a merchant is always the character level plus 5. So as you can see, I'm level 13 right now. that means that every piece of gear in here has item level, or eye level, 18. Since it has eye level 18, that means that it is high enough level to roll with the affix of Nova's Shield. This is really important. The other thing to note is that there are caps on item level available from merchants in the acts of normal. So Act 2 has a maximum item level of 20. So if I were to show up here with a level 99 sorceress and try to buy gear, even though it should be item level 104, which actually if item level, or if character level plus 5 is greater than item level 99, it drops to 99. 99 is the highest item level that can be in the game, just in case you care about that. But since Act 2 normal has a total item level maximum of 20, it will never roll with anything higher than that. This is kind of a blessing, it's kind of a curse. For us, it's really good. There are a couple more affixes which are available on armor between item level 18 and 20, but there's no difference in items available between 18 and 19. So basically what that means is that as long as you shop here up to a maximum of level 14, the minimum amount of affixes which are available for the gear will show in the window here. Basically meaning each thing has a slightly higher chance of rolling with Nova Shield. I'm going to show you Elzix like 3 or 4 times and why this is important. So we are the minimum level, meaning that everything in here is item level 18. See this blue right here? That almost looks like what we want. Of Nova Shield has a blue coloration to it. But basically, and this is why it's such a hassle. Yeah, they're all in the background eating, exactly. This game is troublesome.
Hello.
Give me one piece so I can show the damn people Elzix. Come along. This is going to be the most like hostile highlight ever. Because I hate Elzix by the end of today. This is my D2 life? Yeah, this is basically D2 life.
Good day.
Alright, so it's not here. Fuck it, I hate him. There are 3 affixes which all have the coloration of blue from Elzix. There is of Frost Nova, of Nova Shield, and whichever one means damage goes to mana. They're all blue. They're all similar types of blue depending on what the item is. But basically whenever I'm shopping, I'm coming in, taking a quick look, I see no blue. I go down into the sewers. When you leave the town to go to another area inside of the same act, so the sewers are in Act 2, this completely reloads what items are available at the shops. Alright, cool. So we show up, there's 2 pieces of blue gear. Oh, hot diggity dog, I want these. But wait a minute, this is of Frost Nova, and this is of Frost Nova. You don't want Frost Nova, you want regular Nova. Frost Nova actually sucks for a couple reasons. One, it does basically no damage. Level 3 Frost Nova, I think, does like a maximum of 8 or 10 damage, something like that. 2, Frost Nova slows down your attacker. Why would that suck? Doesn't it give you more survivability? If Thorn reads, every time you are hit for damage, return that damage to the attacker, you want them to hit you faster. So if you slow them down, it will take longer to kill them. Just as a quick aside, if you get like a super awesome belt that has hit recovery and life and dual res, but also has Frost Nova on it, don't use it for a pacifist run. It will suck all of the life out of you.
Hi there.
God damn it. Alright, so that's all the gear. Now we're going to very quickly go over where we put our points, and then what's the very basic strategy, okay? For your skill choices. It turns out that getting to level 21 gives you the perfect amount of pieces, or a perfect amount of points to get Vigor and put a point into Thorns every single level. We don't do the Den on this run, you don't need to respec, and the additional point would just get put into Vigor later and doesn't really serve a purpose. It's a huge time waste. The current strategy doesn't utilize it. If it turns out that it's somehow faster, maybe, but really it doesn't fit into the current strategy. Level 1, you have no skill points. Level 2, you put a point into Prayer. Prayer is cool, it uses mana to heal you slowly over time. It helps to like balance out your potions a little bit more in the early game. Ultimately, you will never use this skill ever again. Level 3, you don't put in a point. Level 4, you don't put in a point. Level 5, you don't put in a point. Level 6, okay, cool. At level 6, we have thorns. So every level you want to put a point into thorns. You put a point into thorns, this is now your primary skill. Also at level 6, you put a point into defiance. Defiance is a prerequisite for vigor, so you put one in here. Level 7, thorns. Level 8, thorns. Level 9, thorns. Level 10, thorns. Level 11, thorns. Level 12, thorns and cleansing aura. Cleansing aura is actually a really cool ability. It gains a synergy from prayer, and not only that, it gains a synergy for any soft points you have in prayer. So typically to get a synergy, right here. So typically to get a synergy point from sacrifice, you would have to have hard points in sacrifice. Prayer, you can have a scepter that gives you plus to prayer, and it will still help cleansing aura. Cleansing aura is really, really good. Cleansing aura will reduce poison time, it will reduce curse time, and it will heal you a little bit. We will use cleansing aura in the Chaos Sanctuary when we're just running around and not fighting anything. We use cleansing aura during the Ancients fight, unless Madoc has a particular elemental damage applied to him, in which case if you have resistance to that from a scepter, you will use it. All in all, if you're just kind of running around, you can have cleansing aura going up until you have vigor. So that got us up to level 12. Level 13 thorns, level 14 thorns, level 15 thorns, level 16 thorns, level 17 thorns, level 18. At level 18, you will have 2 skill points available. You can put 1 point into vigor, which will be your primary skill when you're not currently fighting. You want to have vigor up as often as possible, because we don't have time to go into the Countess and get runes. You're typically not going to have faster run walk, so having vigor is like one of your only ways to actually boost it. Plus, if you have at least 1 point in vigor and then you get a skill shrine, you will get the +2 to vigor, which will increase how fast you're running. So this is very important. And then level 18 thorns. From level 18 to 21, every point that you put in is going to be in thorns moving forward. So 18, 19, 20, and 21. That's skill point allocation. Then you have your attributes. You don't need to put any points into anything other than vitality. The only caveat to this is if you get chain boots with movement speed on them. So if you get Hasaris boots, you would put the extra 5 points in to be able to use the chain boots, and then you would use those moving forward. But nothing else in this game, other than maybe a Grand Scepter, requires you to put in additional points anywhere other than vitality. You want as much in vitality as possible so that you can survive for as long as possible, so you can take damage and return it with thorns. Great. Basic strategy. How do you run this? Since this is a Player's X category, you want to turn Player's 8 on, and then you want to go running off into the Bloodmoor. We've already explored a whole bunch of this, but basically what you're looking to do is open up chests, pop fallen stones, logs, dead bodies, and what you're looking for is money, so gold value items, and a chipped skull. In the world record, Blaze only utilizes attacker takes damage gear. They actually don't get a chipped skull because it's very difficult to get a chipped skull. It's already a 1 in 7 chance that the chipped skull drops as one of the gems available. On top of that, you're not always going to get a gem to drop in the first place. The other really important part, skulls cannot drop from gem shrines. The internet says that they can in multiple sources, including Ariat Summit. It's not available in the loot table. You will never get a chipped skull from a shrine. Although, if you find a gem shrine and you have a chipped skull in your inventory, it will upgrade it to a flawed skull and then continuously forward. For non-paladin pacifist runs, farming gem shrines to get 3 perfect skulls is one of the primary strategies that's involved, because it's one of your only forms of permanent damage being returned to your attacker. The great part about this run is that it's not really over until you have run past Rakanishu. So here I would typically grab the waypoint, I would go back to town, I would sell whatever I had. If I have somewhere around 1500 gold, I would go shop Charcy for attacker takes damage on belt, armor, and shield, and also try to pick up a 2-socket shield just in case. If you have a chipped skull, you just need to go buy a socketed shield. If Charcy doesn't have one, you can also go shop at Geed. because one chip skull is more than enough to get started. So you would shop here, you would take a quick look, I wouldn't see it anywhere, I didn't see any socketed shields, I'd move on to Geed. We are really high level, so I think it's maximum of level 15 in Act 1. Oh, wrong one. Alright, nothing here has it, screw it. If you have at least 3 points of attacker takes damage, either through gear or through a chipped skull, you can then begin leveling. Leveling will typically take place in the Bloodmoor, in the Cold Plains, and then in the Stony Field. In the Bloodmoor, you'd kind of want something like this, a Bishibosh right next to your waypoint, because he does have minions around him. They're a little difficult to differentiate between other Fallen, but he will spawn with minions, and then if you stand next to him, he will eventually kill himself too. He will drop 2 items that are either magic or gems. That's exactly what we want. You'd level up to about level 3 here, and then you would move on to Rakanishu. So again, you could have it up at players 8 while you're running, just so that you have the highest chance of dropping items from the chests that you open, or bodies that you roll, or rocks that you kick open. See how that dropped? Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 drops. 6 drops. That's so insane. The other really important thing to note, and I'll go over that back in the Bloodmoor. So we run over here. Our waypoint happened to be really far away, and our Rakanishu happened to be right here. This isn't really an ideal setup. You would want the waypoint to be a lot closer, so you'd want to identify where Rakanishu is, and then kind of while he's hitting you, run and try to find your waypoint. Once you get Rakanishu and you have a good waypoint, you have a chipped skull in a shield, what do? So you basically level up on players 2 or players 3 off of Rakanishu, depending on how hard he's hitting you, until level 6. At level 6, you want to turn it up to players 8, and then you want to farm Rakanishu until about level 8 or 9. You will move on at some point. When you move on, I recommend turning it to players 3 for the run, all the way to Indariel. At Catacombs level 3, you want to turn it back down to players 1, and then go fight Indariel. And that's the whole beginning of the run. After that, you basically do everything like you normally would, except you have to buy gear in Act 2. The only really important thing to notice is that you do want to get the Heraldric Malice. Once you're high enough level to be buying of Nova Shield gear, you're going to want to get 5 pieces. So a helmet, a body armor, some gloves, some boots, and a shield. It can actually roll on every piece of gear here except for the weapon, amulets, and rings at low level. Once you have 4 or 5 pieces of Nova gear, you can go imbue whichever piece of gear you have that doesn't have it on it. So let's say I got an armor, a glove, a shield, a boot, and I'm like, oh gosh, I can't find one more piece of Nova gear. Wait a minute, let me go imbue a belt. If you imbue a belt, it's plus character level 4, so you have to be at least level 14. Keep that in mind, that's really important. But even your belt can roll with plus to Nova, and then boom, you've got everything that you need. That's the beginning of the run. That's why we're shopping. That's the gear that we're looking for. You basically need to get out of Act 2 close to 1 hour to have a chance at the world record. Maybe a little bit later, maybe like 1 hour and 5, 1 hour and 10. That means you need to have Act 2 completed and have shopped all of your Nova gear. It gets harder and harder to find Nova gear as you go forward. Especially in Act 3, it can drop from the chests in Lower Kurast, but you have to get really, really lucky. But other than that, there's nothing else that can even drop of Nova gear that's farmable, so you have to shop it in Act 2. Done. There we go. Does everybody feel like they fully understand the Pacifist run and what we're trying to accomplish? Does anybody have any questions? I'm now physically exhausted. That hurt my voice a lot.